Alright guys, welcome back for the first match. We're on the play. We're going first. That's a pretty decent hand. It's a bit suboptimal, given that we can only drop one creature from Emissary and that we are slightly flooded, but I think this hand is still way too good to mulligan, and I think I'm gonna save the Spirit Guide, or like use the Spirit Guide and save the Emissary. That probably makes the most sense, since the Emissary doesn't do a whole lot, and we rather have two Kurdapes than a Kurdap and an Emissary. Alright, so... and also if we like draw a Bushwhacker on turn 2, that's pretty good. Time to get a Stomping Ground. Get out a Kurdape. Use Spirit Guide. Get another Kurdape out. But yeah, that's basically exactly the type of thing that I was talking about. If this hand would be 3 lands, it would be so much worse than if it was 2 lands and Spirit Guide, because now the Spirit Guide at least makes up for the mediocrity of the hand a bit by its explosiveness, because the hand's definitely too good to mulligan, but is a bit lackluster. And yeah, that's the type of nice balance between shaving some lands for some Spirit Guides in a deck that mostly plays the amount of land that it does to get good enough opening hands, rather than because it actually needs that amount over the course of the game. Alright, so I think I'm gonna use the Emissary here. There's not really much point in holding back. Just in case we draw like a Bushwhacker, it's not worth it. I'd rather get it in play. Go for maximum explosiveness. Obviously not gonna bolt the opponent's face here, just because we have the mana. And yeah, we are in a pretty good spot. We have 4 creatures by turn 2 against a Search for Tomorrow deck, most likely Valakut Titan. And unless he has like a turn 3 Anger of the Gods, he should have no chance in this game. Not sure how many people play how many Angers main deck right now in the archetype, but they probably play some amount usually, because the card's really good in that deck. Not only against this deck, just like against decks in general. So the question this turn will be if we play the Renegade into a potential Anger or hold it back, since yeah, I think we probably play it into Anger, just because I am convinced that, like, I mean, if we look at it, like, how likely are we to win this game if he has an Anger? I think the chances of winning this game are very small if he has an Anger, because if we like drop a 1-2 after Anger, it's an interesting question. I mean, maybe it's good to not play it, simply because even if he doesn't have an Anger, we don't need it, since we already have like 9 power and a bolt. Or if we just do it, like, the thing is, we have 9, so like if he plays 1 blocker, blocks on a Cardle, we get him to 1 unless he has to fetch. So that actually makes a difference. And how likely is this Renegade to win us the game if he has Anger? And I think not particularly. I mean, there are some things that we can draw off the top that make it better, but not really anything good, because mostly it's fetch lands and we don't want to draw a 3rd land after we got angered. So I think it's better to play it, simply because it makes it almost certain that we can beat anything that isn't Anger and doesn't kill us at this point. Like, I mean, if he has Through the Breach Titan, he might be able to just get us here. But yeah, other than that, I think Renegade should help us beat another Tribe Elder, for example, and stuff like that. While without the Renegade, we would be in a position where the opponent would end up at 1 if he just has a simple Sakura Tribe Elder, for example, to block on a Cuddle. Unless we top deck something. So there's the 3rd land. Please don't have Anger. There's the Anger. Yep, that's That's game. Yeah, there's a Bushwhacker that we can't even play. I guess that's where Simian Spirit Guide is a little worse. Simian Spirit Guide was a land. We could have just played it here or bolted it and played it. But it wouldn't even like need to bolt because it doesn't do anything if the Bushwhacker is alone. But yeah, we could have attacked him to 8. But I doubt it's gonna make any difference in this game. Especially now that he has Courser with like Expedition and stuff, so that guy blocks well, gains him card advantage in life, and pulls him firmly out of reach. So yeah, I think this game is over. We can safely concede here in this position. There's no chance to come back from this. Alright, time for sideboarding. I think I like some passes against his like Titan combo, probably only 2. Since I would assume he's on Through the Breach, I think there's like no version that doesn't run it. Also simply because it's really good and makes the deck faster and more explosive in matchups where you have to win fast, which is important in Modern. So I would assume he has them, and even if he doesn't, sometimes pass will still matter on blockers. Like sometimes it can even be a lightning bolt if we pass a Circular Tribe Elder that would otherwise block an Arcadal or Experiment 1. And I think we might want to consider Tarmogoyf. Not because it's like generally the way we want to go in this matchup, but because it allows us to add to the board into an anger without getting punished for it. The same applies for Experiment 1, which makes it very valuable in this matchup. And yeah, Rampager is really bad here, I think. I mean, sure, it is kind of nice against Obstinate Baloth and Tribe Elder, but it's also fairly expensive for that and kind of situational and doesn't deal with Titan, and Pass sort of does the same in a bit weaker but more flexible in the sense that it also hits Titan and whatever else they might have or bring in. And the question is, I think what we also don't want is Lightning Bolt. And I think I might want 1 Rampager, simply because I like 1 Rampager better than the 3rd Pass, I think, in this matchup. And Bolt is just not a good card. So yeah, I think 2 Pass, 1 Rampager is better than the 3rd Pass in this matchup, probably. Because drawing multiple Pass is really bad. And Pass is really only better, usually, against Titan relative to Rampager. Rampager is better against anything that isn't Titan, usually. Alright, this is, I think, a mulligan. It's close, like, it has 2 Goblin Guide, with the mana to play them, which is nice, and an Emissary that can drop like a 2nd Goblin Guide, and a Renegade or a Rancor if we draw one. But I think on the play it's just too bad. Like on the draw I might be more inclined to keep it, but the deck also runs like so few mana sources that we easily never find the 2nd mana. Like we just can't count on finding the 2nd mana in time with the low land count we have. Pooh, that's a really awkward hand. I think we got a mulligan again. No 1-drop, or like no playable 1-drop, and also still needing to like find a land between the scry and our draw step is just too much. Yeah, and this didn't really get any better. So this is like a close decision, but I think it's still better to mulligan to 4 than to keep this on the play. Yeah, now we just gotta keep and watch our opponent kill us. That's very sad for the first match of this series. But yeah, the deck with anger is probably our biggest enemy, because that is like arguably the single best and most punishing card against this deck. And I mean, the Valakut deck is reasonably popular, but it at best makes it in like the top 10 most played decks, I think, usually. Like, it doesn't make it into the top 5. At least we got land off the top, so we are getting somewhere. Gonna start with experiment 1. Oh no, actually, I think I'm gonna start with Nanam Renegade, simply because we are not that likely to be able to activate it later, but we have enough creatures to still get experiment 1 big enough later with like experiment into Guide into Nakadal. Like if we draw a land next turn, if we are lucky, we could easily go experiment Guide. That way we just go experiment, see what's going on. Seems like our opponent has a bad hand too. Casually not doing anything other than Valakut on turn 1. Not sure why someone would keep that hand. I mean, we mulligan to 4 and he like kept his 7. I appreciate it. Like, I mean, that's the way to come back from a hand like this. And yeah, I like playing the other experiment better here than growing the first one. Because if we draw, especially because if we draw a land, we can just go dump our hand. That's a pretty big deal though. Like, why would you ever in a million years keep a Valakut only opening hand on 7? Like, this seems ridiculous and terrible. I have no idea what like made him keep this hand. It's just so absurd. I mean, but I'm sure like he just will have an anger and just play Anger of the Gods next turn, and we lose anyway because he gets rewarded for his terrible decision by being super lucky. That's just like ridiculous. Some people just don't make sense. And I mean, it's not that likely that you like accidentally keep a hand on Magic Online. But alright. Let's lead with a Nakadal and see if we can get anywhere still, but it's not likely. I mean, he has a stacked hand if his only land in the opening hand was a Valakut. And yeah, Corsa is another card, by the way, that the whole pass Rampager thing applies to. Forgot to mention that. Plus I'm sure he has another Titan if he discarded a Titan. Then again, if he's that bad that he keeps a hand like that, who knows, maybe he also just discarded his only Titan when having to discard because, you know, it costs 6 mana, so I better discard the most expensive card. But we'll find out in no time. Really sad, would have been so cool to like win with this mulligan to 4 to get a real third game, simply because our opponent like messes up so much that our bad luck doesn't matter and we just still manage to win. I mean, that's the stuff you gotta hope for, that your opponent makes major mistakes if you have to mulligan to 4 and pass the first turn without any action. But yeah. And it really seems like he just discarded his only Titan. Like, that's just great. And we're still gonna lose to that, to someone that makes decisions like that. But yeah, that's it with the variance sometimes. Yeah, not really a point in playing any of these, so we'll just pass. I mean, this game is basically over already. We're just biding our time, waiting to die, waiting for our opponent that discarded his win condition to find another win condition, because yeah, things. And I play the Tarmogoyf, since it doesn't overextend into anger and might give us an attack once we draw like a pass to get rid of Baloth, for example. Might as well play the land. But yeah, he gains so much life from Courser that he's back up to 18. He gained like 9, now 10, probably 11 or 12 life during his turn. Can gain a 13s with Tribe Elder. That's just like, and he starts spell equipping our stuff now. So yeah, we're just done here. Alright, that was a very unfortunate first match, but what can you do? Like, if you play the deck that dies to anger and your opponent has the anger, then you're just gonna lose, and the second game was just really unfortunate. Alright, that's it for the first match. Stay tuned for the second one in a moment.